Bhagavadpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastanivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Bhadram Karnebhihi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Stirairangaistuštubhagum sastanubhihi Vashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's chant verses number 14 and 15. So 14 we started last week and we will finish it, and perhaps we will go to number 15 also. Punascha janmantara karma yogat Punascha janmantara karma yogat Sa eva jivaha swapiti prabuddhaha Sa eva jivaha swapiti prabuddhaha Puratraye kridati yascha jivaha Puratraye kridati yascha jivaha Tatastu jatam sakalam vichitram Tatastu jatam sakalam vichitram Adharamanandam akhanda bodham Adharamanandam akhanda bodham Yasmin layam yati puratraye cha Yasmin layam yati puratrayam cha. Number 15. Etasmat jayate prano manah sarvendriyani cha Etasmat jayate prano manah sarvendriyani cha Kham vayus jyotiripa Kham vayu jyotirapah prithvi vishvasya dharini Kham vayu jyotirapah prithvi vishvasya dharini. So in the last class we had been talking about the fact that our day in our life, a complete day and night cycle in our life, should give us a very good clue to what our existence in this world is all about. All the seeds of an understanding of the ultimate objective of living, the goal of life, the ultimate goal of life, the objective of life, becomes obvious if we examine the very clear structure of a given day and night cycle. Let me close this door, I'll be right back. So if one thinks about it, the design of a day, 24-hour day, when I say day, I also mean the night, 24-hour period. When we think about it, the design of this period is very revealing. So this is the, Vedanta is also called Rahasyam, often called Rahasyam. Rahasyam means a secret. So the Vedanta Shastra, the Vedanta teaching of the Vedas, the teaching of the Vedas through Vedanta, it's considered to be a secret. And secret in the sense that it's not as though it is kept from anyone. Normally secrets can be somewhere you say, don't tell it to anyone. So that can be one form of a secret. But another form of secret is, it is difficult to decipher without some help. This is we know that in the Second World War, the German plans for the invasion of Europe and England, they had a plan of some kind, because all wars are fought with some strategy, and you need to understand what the strategy is. So there were several attempts to find out where the strategy is implemented. So the Germans, for example, would communicate the plans to their various outposts in the form of messages. But you don't know what the messages contained because they were so secret. You had no idea what it meant. And it took a while for some very sharp English people, and there's a movie written on it, a movie on it that I saw. I forget the name of it. What's the name of this English person, scientist who broke the code? And it was a very major contribution towards stopping the German invasion of Europe. It took a while, but it required a certain deciphering of the secret. So the second type of secret, the other type of secret, is not something where you are physically keeping something to yourself, but you are openly giving it to people, but in such a way that a normal person doesn't understand it. And it requires a certain way of deciphering it. So similarly, I think that I suggest to you that analyzing the structure of a day, because this is how Ishvara has designed. Nothing in the whole world is undesigned. Very carefully done. And so the structure of a day is something that is worth looking at. So this is what we've been examining, and verse number 13, 12, 13 and 14 talk about it. So the elements of what the goal of our life is becomes evident if we examine the structure of a given 24-hour period. This is where the secret, this is where the deciphering is contained, and we need to look into that. So we will continue our tour of how to do that today. But we already covered in the last class the following things. What we covered was, and this is This is what Vedanta is communicating. This is exactly what it's trying to tell, is that the goal of life is complete freedom from any problems that we can have. Complete freedom, unconditional freedom. This is what we call moksha. Artha, Kama, Dharma are the first three stages, and the last one is moksha. This is what we have to really think about. So the goal of life, if somebody were to ask what is the goal of life, the goal of life is very simple, that we need to go back to our own nature. Go back in the sense that we are the very nature of pure joy, ananda, paramananda, but we don't know it. And because of that, it is hidden in the crevices of our mind, our conclusions, and so on. This is what the basic thesis is. The goal of everyone's life, at all times, at all places, is to discover that we are totally free and totally fulfilled. Our Swarupa is Ananda. This is the goal. So the question is, how is that possible? Because that's not my experience. My experience is that I'm not totally happy. I'm happy here and there. In fact, our teachers all say, the Vacharyas all say, that generally speaking, we are not very happy. If you kind of look at the average person, it is very rare that you are completely happy. Most of the time you're unhappy, 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 happy. Unhappy, 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 happy. Swami Dayanand used to say that. It's a very interesting analogy. He says the human being is like a drowning person. And a drowning person is somewhere in between a non-drowning person and a drowned person. So a non-drowning person is not struggling. A drowned person who's already drowned is not struggling. It's over. But the in between, one who doesn't know how to swim very well and comes up for air and then goes down again and becomes a struggle is a drowning person. I think I might have told you this or not, but I experienced this in Hawaii, I think about 10 years ago. Nearly drowned. So what happened was that we were on a vacation with my family, my two sons and their kids, and my wife, and I think that's it. It's our own family. We didn't have any friends. And so the thing was, let us go snorkeling. So all these young people, they are very fond of it, and they said, come on, you should also go snorkeling. So my wife said, absolutely not. I don't want to go. And I was hesitating and so on, but my kids all said, no, come on, Dad, you can snorkel. So I told them, I don't know how to swim. I mean, I can swim for a few minutes and barely, but if I'm left out in the ocean, I'm very likely to drown. So they know that I'm not a swimmer. They all are good swimmers. But they said, no, for snorkeling, you don't need to swim. You put this thing on and it's got this air pipe that you can have. So I don't know what happened. I said, all right, I will do it. That was almost turned out to be a life-threatening mistake. So I told everybody, and they all said, okay, if you are struggling, then raise your hand. And so they were all around me. They said, we'll protect you, and so on. So I started to snorkel. And you know what happens if you get waves that are quite heavy. You can have the snorkel be under the water. And if you don't know how to breathe properly, you can actually get water. And that's exactly what happened to me. All of a sudden I decided I am ingesting water. Sea water is poison. You can die if it's got so much salt in there. And I experienced that. All of a sudden I'm panicking. And somehow or the other I'm keeping myself afloat. I should have really turned the thing off and just breathe on my own. But I didn't know how to do that. So I had this equipment. And now I'm really flailing. I said, oh my God, I may actually. So I raised my hands. Fortunately, I don't remember, the older son or the younger son saw me. And he came over. And it took him like a minute or so to reach me. And I am really struggling. And I've already swallowed some water. And then he put his arms around me and lifted me up. And then we went to the boat. So, Swami Dayananji says that if you really examine the average person, we have the experience of drowning. Drowning in the sense that we are not completely happy at all times, occasionally happy, but then we become unhappy again. So not really dying in that sense, but becoming unhappy. So that's our experience. Why? Why does it happen? What is it that I have to do to be completely happy? So this we are going to look into that today. But going back to the structure of the 24 hours, the secret to moksha is there if we examine the content and the structure of the 24 hours. So we have already visited that, but let me summarize it and move ahead. So, as you know, the contents of the 24 hours have 3 segments. One is deep sleep, when we are not aware of any plurality in our life, any expression. There's no thoughts, the mind is also asleep, the body is also asleep, only the prana is going on, and that also I am not aware of. So I am, for intents and purposes, I am completely out of it. But I can find out from reflecting it later that that state of being out of it was a very happy state. So this is a very important thing for us to see. So this is what says there is a sign of moksha. Sign of moksha. A little sample. Just like you get a sample of an ice cream. You just get, can I take just 1 spoon of coffee ice cream? And they say, sure. So you just get 1 spoon. So this is also like the deep sleep state at night is 1 spoon of happiness. So this is one thing. And the more important thing is that the dream state is where the seeds of analysis are sown for you to reflect upon. So we've already talked about this, but let me spend a couple of more minutes deciding that, because that is the door That is the puzzle, part of the puzzle that I must reflect on if I want to reach the ultimate goal of moksha in my life. What is it that I need to do? I need to see the signs of moksha in my dream state. Really? How? The dream state is enormously instructional. Enormously instructional. Very important for our gaining complete happiness. A careful analysis of the dream experience is crucial. How? Because it shows us the Mithya nature of our experience. Mithya means apparently real. Not real, but appears to be real. This is the definition of Mithya. So the Mithya is a technical word in Vedanta. It does not really mean false. It doesn't mean false. It means that unless you inquire into it, it has the appearance of reality. And what that means is that if you were to inquire into it, it disappears. This is the nature of Mithya, and that is the nature of the dream state that I must reflect upon. Carefully designed by Ishvara. This is kind of like a lifeline given to us. So we have to see. You can pray to God, oh God, please make me happy, and you can do all of that. So the Ishvara says, okay, why don't you see that you are asleep to your own swarupa, your own nature, which is my nature, Ishvara says, which is complete freedom from any problems. Please see that. This is how I can give you my blessings. Your prayer is, please bless me. Oh God, please bless me. I'm very blessed. As you know, the blessing. Interesting word, blessing. Blessing means something, it's just a really interesting word. This means that it's something that it has a tinge of saying that give me what I want. And even give me something that I don't even think about wanting. This is what a blessing is. It also means that it's something that I may or may not deserve, but just give it to me. I mean, all those meanings of the word blessings can be given, but without going into all of that, just please bless me. Ishvara says, okay, all right, do you want to be blessed? So I said, yeah, I want to be blessed. Okay. So you see, this is the whole nature of the Bhagavad Gita is. Because Arjuna, as the example of a troubled person, Arjuna, so Vyasa in his characterization of Arjuna has made into an example of a struggling, troubled person. And so Arjuna asks for blessings from Krishna. And Krishna is the avatara of Ishvara. The avatara of Ishvara means that he specially came in to bless people, to create some harmony in this very disharmonious world. Yada yada he says, whenever there is complete chaos, I will come to help you. So he was there for that purpose, for blessing. So Arjuna said, please bless me. So Krishna says, okay. So Arjuna was thinking, it'd be nice if he has such a powerful body and a powerful hand, if he just puts his hand onto top of me and says, Arjuna, you're blessed. That's it. Arjuna wakes up and he says, my God, thank you. I'm done. It doesn't happen that way. So he says, if you want me to bless you, here's what you need to do. You need to think. Arjuna must have said, what? I need to think? Thinking is my problem. I should be just keeping my eyes closed and not think. And you're telling me to think. So Krishna, of course, is solicitous. He's not trying to make any trouble for Arjuna. So he says, Arjuna, you need to think. Why? Because Arjuna is thinking wrongly. To think means think the correct way. And this is how you will be blessed. So here, keeping that value in mind, the Ishvara's message, which is communicated through the scriptures, is that the dream state is an occasion for you to think. And the way to do that is to examine the Mithya nature of dream state. The Mithya nature of dream state means you are apparently experiencing things when in fact you are not. This you need to think about. And you should think about, while you are experiencing it in the dream, you are fully experiencing the good and bad parts of the dream that you yourself designed for yourself. So you are a victim of your own thinking. But so you cannot get out of it while you are in the middle of the dream. In the dream, the lessons will be such that in the case of our waking state, my waking has to be done within the waking state. There's a slight difference. Whereas in the dream state, while I'm dreaming, I'm not free of the dream. But the dream state ending gives us a very good example that the experiences of a dream are not real. They are Mithya. And how do we come to that conclusion? Only when the dream is gone. And there is no trace of anything on me. It's not that somebody poured water over me in the dream and I'm still wet when I wake up. No. No changes whatsoever. No, if my hand gets burnt in the fire in the dream, when I'm waking up, I am completely okay. If I had a wonderful meal in the dream with lots of desserts and so on, when I wake up, I'm still hungry, just like when I went to bed. No changes whatsoever. No touching. It's a different level of reality, which is Mithya. So then I conclude from this, and this is what I need to now pursue. This line of thinking is what I need to pursue. And that is that the dream state appears to be real and scares the heck out of me, but it is false. And so the falseness of dream, I said that it's not completely false, so it's a mithya. So the mithyatvam of the dream only becomes available when you are awake from it. Okay, so if that's the case, then I need to go further and examine that my experiences while I'm so-called awake are very much like my experiences as when I am in dream. They last for a longer time and they are more vivid. They appear to be much more solid. And the reason why all these things are there is because in the dream I don't have identification with a gross body. So all my imaginations are just mental. Whereas in the waking state, I take on for a life an identification with this gross body. And so as a result of that, the experiences in the waking state are much more solid sounding, solid looking, solid experiences. You cannot, you have to be much more careful. In dream also you create a kind of a dream body, and there also you can singe your hand if you go and touch something hot. But it's all mental. Whereas here, in addition to mental is still there in the waking state, but also in addition to that, I also have a physical body that makes things much more solid looking. So there are differences, but the similarities are overwhelming. The differences are minor compared to the similarities. The similarities are that I have an experience of a waking character, like I had the experience of a dream character. I also take on an identification with a waking character. As soon as I take on the identification with a particular waking character, now all of a sudden the world becomes plural to me. People are different, situations are unfriendly, friendly. That part is similar. Also, these experiences of myself as a character had a beginning and will end. Like in the dream character, it had a beginning and an ending. Another thing, like the dream, I find that all my experiences are changing. There's nothing fixed about it. They are ephemeral. They come and go. And perhaps the most important part, the similarity between the waking and the dream state is that in the dream state also, the changingness, the ephemeral character, the beginning and the end is all based on a non-changing fulcrum, a non-changing support, a non-changing support very much like the ornaments of gold. All the ornaments have a support, or the waves of the ocean. So all the waviness of a particular wave has a support. In Sanskrit it is called adhara. It has an adhara. Adhara means that it's not just doing it in the air. It is fluttering because of the changes, apparent changes in the adhara, in the very support. Like the water has the ability to be in droplets and even be separated from the body, but it resolves back into the body. So here, a very important similarity between the waking state and the dream state is that in dream state also, you cannot have Mithya. You cannot have Mithya without Satyam. Mithya does not exist on its own. It exists as the Satyam but not understood Satyam. Very much example of that of the rope and the snake. So you cannot imagine the snake vision is based on the rope dimensions. If you see a 3-foot long rope, you can only see a 3-foot long snake. If the rope has one bend, the snake must also have one bend. In addition to the one bend and the 3 feet of length, the snake can have some things that are imagined. Like you can say that it is moving, or that it has some fangs. But the basic structure is to be based on the non-movement and the shape of the rope. So similarly here also the similarities between the similarity between the waking state and the dream state is that both have an adhara, both have a non-changing support. And that is where I need to think about. That is the basis of moksha. So the moksha, a sense of freedom, is one where it is non-moving, quiet, not having any forms, self-existing. I'm all adding some gunas to this. And that is the adhara of the changes. So, the clue and the way to decipher the clues, like we did that in the German army, is to view the plurality of the world not on the basis of the differences in the various things, but the non-difference of them. And the non-difference comes from the underlying support, the adhara. And the clues are obvious from the dream because my consciousness is the adhara. I, as the conscious entity, alone is the adhara for the plurality in the dream. And the same I, the conscious entity, is the adhara for the waking state. So now we can begin to see that we saw that the 24-hour period was a very good clue to what moksha should be. Because we saw that the fastest sleep is the state that I want, where there's no problems of any kind. As we have talked about it before also, the deep sleep state is a remarkable state. It's just amazing if you think about it. Because even if you are hurt during the day, at night time you are not affected by it. If you have some emotional issues to deal with during the day, they're gone. It's amazing how independent you are from all problems. It's a sample, just like we saw in the ice cream. So it's possible. You see, that's the thing as we were discussing earlier, is that right now my thinking is that I must solve all my problems before I'll be happy. The deep sleep makes a mockery of that conclusion. No, you don't have to solve any problems. You are happy with or without problems. I think I told you this, that Swami Dayananji, when he first came to this country, he asked all the people, he went back to India and says, "Oh, Swamiji, so what was US like? How were the Americans?" and so on. So he says, "Okay, let me explain this to you." He says that in India, we are uncomfortable because we don't have, air conditioning and it's too crowded, there's dirt all over and so on. It's discomfort. We are uncomfortably unhappy. In the US, we are comfortably unhappy. But we are still unhappy. So, This is the situation that he was explaining about it. So here, the states are very similar. So in the deep sleep state, there is no discomfort of any kind. This is a beautiful sample. So it is possible that I don't need to have any, whether I have problems or not, I am free from it. This is what I need to understand. And we will understand it one day. So therefore now we can draw the conclusion that, so here just look at this. In verse number 14, let's go back to the verse 14 itself, and then we can start to wrap it up before we go to 15. So he says, it's the same adharam. He says it. Tatastu jatam sakalam vichitram adharam ananda nakhanda bodham yasmin layam yati puratrayecha. So he says, so this is something that needs to be really thought about. Please see this. This is a very important way to examine this. So the dream and the waking state have small differences, but mostly it is identical. This is what we need to do. And if you want to study this in more detail, you have to really go into the Mandukya Upanishad with the Karika, which we did already. Those classes are available if you want to do it. It went on for like 2 years. So the purpose of doing that was to very carefully examine, because we have all these doubts. Oh no, how can this be true? The dream is gone, this is waking state, they are very different. No, they are not. It's the lack of thinking that really makes them different. When we think about it in more clear terms, the similarities come up. Like for instance, they both have a beginning and an end, leaving the adhara the same. In the case of dream, before I started last night, I was a non-dreamer. During the night, I had dream experience, and then it got resolved back into non-dreamer. I become a non-dreamer. So my adhara is non-dreamer. In between, the dream came up. This is how the Mithya is. Can you also see that this is exactly each life is? Before you were born as a baby in this life, you are the same adhara, a conscious entity. And during this life, you have taken such a identity. You've convinced yourself that this is who you are, and so for the whole life you are a waking character. And you have adopted this physical body as your vehicle. And the physical body is not permanent. It's made up of all these parts that are already becoming non-functional. And very soon they are going to fall apart. And when they can fall apart, you stay the same adhara. Just like in the dream state also, you are no longer a dreamer. The dream character is gone and has merged into you. So this is exactly what it says. And so just to revise this verse, so make sure that we understand it. He says, Punascha janmantara karma yogat saha eva jivaha swapiti prabuddhaha. So let's look at the English translation of the whole verse. He says, again, because of the deeds done in the past life, janmantara karma yogat, the very same jiva comes back to the dream or wakefulness. Saha eva jivaha swapati prabuddhaha. The jiva who thus sports in the three cities, as we saw last class, or three stages, three different plays that I work in. The jiva who thus sports in the three cities is the substratum, the adhara. So, Puratraye, line number 3, Puratraye means the three cities. Kridati, one who sports, or even one who enjoys. Yascha jivaha, tatastu jatam sakalam vichitram. The indivisible consciousness and joy, from whom the entire varied diversity has sprung up, and in whom alone all the three cities dissolve. The three cities are the waking city, waking stage, dream city, dream state, and the deep sleep state. The adhara for that is you. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Anandam Akhanda Bodham. And you remain the same. And as long as it is not inquired into, your what is called yoga nidra. So this very deep sleep state continues life to life to life to life to life, because you haven't woken up. You continue to, in this whole life, we are living a kind of like a dreamlike experience, that I am in this body and I have these experiences. These are my friends, this is my spouse, me, mine. That's all I can think about. I am not thinking about the unchanging adhara, which I really am. Well, I've taken on this temporary identity. And I'm not giving up the temporary identity, because the temporariness of the body also disappears. But my thinking of the identity is not gone. So I take up another body. Just like example, when you wake up from the dream, the body is still functional. So you now go back to the identity of the same body. Similarly, when I'm going from one life to the other, I have to adopt a new body, because I don't know who I am. So I have to be somebody. This is exactly what it is saying. Now we can see this. Punascha janmantara karma yogat sa eva jivaha swapiti prabuddhaha puratraye kridati yascha jivaha tatastu jatam sakalam vichitram. All this variety of different experiences that I have are all sprung up from that, just like in a dream. Adharam anandam akhandabodham yasmin layam yati puratrayeja. All the cities disappear. This I have to think about. And if I'm able to think about it, if I have to, this is what is called vichara. We discussed this in the Tuesday night class. The word vichara is important. Not just think casually about it, but I have to systematically inquire. Because these are the clues that will wake me up. So what I need to do, and the differences are, by the way, here. See, look at this. The differences are, I think I briefly mentioned that before, but now let me reiterate it. You cannot wake up from the dream unless the whole dream is gone. Just like supposing you are dreaming and all of a sudden the alarm rings, or somebody wakes you up and says, wake up, it's time to go. At that time, the dream spends maybe fraction of a second, maybe 2 or 3 seconds to still stay in your mind, but then it's gone. You can't even recall it. Gone. Whereas in the waking state, upon reflection and vichara and thinking, the waking dream, if I can say it that way, the waking dream will continue, but your identity will be different from you. See, this needs to be really understood. So it is a difference. In the case of a dream, you cannot end the dream without completely eliminating everything, because it's your dream. Whereas the waking state is in a way a dream sanctioned by Ishvara. Sanctioned by Ishvara means that you are also part of somebody else's dream. You see? You're also part of somebody else's dream. So, you may wake up from it. It's really what happens. If you're married and there are people who can become wise and while they're married, from the standpoint of their spouses, there's no difference. They still see the same person. Inside, however, you are now emancipated. You have a different identity for it. You can't even tell it to somebody. They'll mock at you. They'll say, I have discovered I am Paramatma. And your spouse will say, well, that's very nice, but please, you still have to wash the dishes. I don't care whether you're Paramatma or Jivatma or any other kind of Atma. Don't give me all these words. You have responsibilities. You have to take out the garbage. So this is a different dream because it is in a way sanctioned by Ishvara's dream. Other people are also involved. So you cannot completely end it as such. But through vichara, when you look into that, you find the more you do vichara, you find you will be awake from this so-called waking state. So he says, Adharam anandam akhandabodham yasmin layam yati puratrayeja. Purutrayam cha. All three cities disappear. Because that is the truth. Not something you have to do which is impossible. No, it is already true. You just have to wake up. So this is the verse. All this is good, very well put together by Swamiji's text on this. So what I would really recommend is, now that we have discussed it in a couple of classes, please go over this. This particular verse number 14 is on page 158 and it ends on page 166. So please read through that, which will give you a slight different language, if nothing else, and so on. Okay? So we are done with verse number 14. Let's go to verse number 15 now. So here, in introducing verse number 15, at the very bottom of page 166, Swami Viditatmananda says, the three states of experience were described with reference to the individual self. But Upanishad says, understand that you are not the individual self, you are the universal self. In what way is the individual self the universal self? The next mantra describes that. So, what that means is that even though, as we were discussing, the waking state, and I use those words rather carefully, was sanctioned by Ishvara. Sanction means they were agreed to by Ishvara. See, they were agreed to by Ishvara means this is what is called. So there are three kinds of truth, as we know. So one is called Pratibhasika Sat. The second one is called Vyavaharika Sat, and the third one is called Paramarthika Sat. The first one, which is called Pratibhasika Sat, is called subjective reality. The second one is objective reality, and the third one is called absolute reality. So, Pratibhasika Sat is subjective reality. Vyavaharika Sat is objective reality. And Paramarthika Sat is absolute reality. How? So this goes back to the sanctioning of Ishvara by the waking, sanctioning by Ishvara of the waking state. So let's look at the Pratibhasika Sat first. Subjective reality is highly individualistic. So a person might think of something and you have no idea what that person is thinking of. Person may have some crazy ideas and only that person has it. Unless that person acts out the crazy idea, you don't know what those crazy ideas are, what the crazy ideas are. So that's number one thing. That's your own mental thoughts and so on. Subjective. They can be objective, but Basically, because they are internal to you, they are subject to just by you. The second one is objective reality. Objective reality means which is shared by everybody. So in my eyes also I am a man, and from other people also they upon look on me as a man, not as a woman. Objective reality, shared reality. The third one is the most interesting one, which is absolute reality. Because the other two keep on changing. So even though I'm a man, I used to be a lot younger. I'm changing and I'm growing older. I've lost all my hair. And my skin is getting wrinkly. So I'm a changing man. The subjective reality changes very quickly. A dream is like a subjective reality, whereas an objective reality changes but slowly. And so the waking state is the objective reality. But then comes the adharam. Ananda Rupam, Akhanda Rupam is the absolute reality which does not change at all. So now the question is, this is what I am told, that you are the unchanging substratum for all of your changes. This we saw in verse number 14. Now the question is, this unchanging nature of myself, is that just for me? Or is that the basis of the entire world? And if you really think about it, it cannot just be for you. This is the basic consciousness called I, me. It is really the basis of the entire world. So what this means is, not only is my life means my personalized life, my house, cars, spouses, children, friends. Not only are they just my vision of what my life is, not only are they just Mithya, but the entire world that I live in is also Mithya. There's no two ways of distinguishing it. Anything which is not me, the absolute reality, anything which is not me, the absolute reality, is Mithya. And by that definition, by that vision, that understanding, whether it is the sun and the moon and the earth. Why? Because it is not me, the absolute reality. The absolute reality is unchanging. Ekarasam. It has no plurality in it. It is just Kaivalyam. That's the whole idea of the Kaivalya Upanishad. Kevalasya bhavam. It is just by itself. There's only like one water of the ocean. That's it. There may be many waves and so on, but only one water. So similarly, I am alone as the very adhara for the whole world. So really speaking, at that point when I acquire moksha, the entire world for me disappears. The entire world would remain for someone else that has not understood that. But for me, it is gone. So this means that it is not just the individual self, but the universal self. So I will read this verse and go through the word meanings, and then we will summarize it again in the next class, the full meaning of it, which I've already started with, but we will complete it in the next class. So let's look at the constituents of the words of verse number 15. Etasmat jayate pranaha manaha sarvendriyani cha kham vayuhu jyotihi apaha prithvi vishvasya dharini. Etasmat. Etasmat means from this. Which this? The same this, because this is a pronoun. If it's a pronoun, then what does it refer to? It talks about the vastu that was done in the last verse. Adharam, Anandam Akhandabodham, Yasmin Layam Yati Puratrayam Cha. That pure consciousness, that adhara, that substratum of all the things, that one. Etasmat means from that. Jayate pranaha manaha sarve indriyani cha. Is born pranaha, the life force. So the life force is part of the sukshma sharira. So everything is nothing but the conscious entity, but the life-giving conscious entity only comes in when you have prana. This table does not have prana. You and I as people have prana. So that prana is born from this alone. Manaha, all the mind, the thinking. Sarve indriyani. Indriyani means all the 5 organs of sense organs, 5 organs of karma, action, organs of action, organs of knowledge, all the 5 different ones. And then not only that, but also its objects. Objects is kham. Kham here means the space. Vayuhu is the air. Jyotihi, fire. Apaha, water. Prithvi, the earth. And Vishvasya Dharini. Vishvasya Dharini means that the earth that supports the entire life. All of that are born from this consciousness. Just like that's exactly what happens in a dream. In dream also you have sun and the moon and the Prithvi and the fire and the air. All of that is born from your own consciousness, isn't it? Not coming in from outside. You don't have any space. There's no other source than your own consciousness. So similarly here also, etasmad jayate pranaha. So anything which is not absolute consciousness is born from the absolute consciousness. From paramarthika sat becomes vyavaharika sat. And the vyavaharika sat has all these elements into it. Your own personal living, life, prana, etc., as well as all the outside things. There's no difference. They are both, just like in a dream also, you are the dream character, dreamer, and you also have the world to contend with. They all both come from the same consciousness. So that's the meaning of the fact. So it is not just you are actually the adhara of the whole world. That's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Here I am, I'm thinking I'm just a small character. I'm just a small speck in the whole world. Not realizing that I am in fact the adharam of the whole world. So anyway, we'll finish verse number 15 and then go on to the next one. We have a total of 24 verses to go. Perhaps I can just give you a brief look into what the classes will be. I already mentioned that in the first class. So what will happen is the following. We will take up the class next week, and then on the 7th of May, I need to travel for visiting a friend's son's wedding, and so there will be no class on the 7th. So there will be one more class of Kaivalya next week, and after that, and I'll send you the email for this, there will be no class on the 7th. Then after that, there will be 5 more classes. And I hope to finish Kaivalya Upanishad in those 5 classes. So we have 6 more classes left, 1 next week, then the gap of 1 week, and then 5 more classes. Okay? And after that, as many of you know, you may know that I'm going to be going to Sailorsburg to teach for 1 week. So that Saturday, which is the 18th of June, there will be no class. The following Saturday, on the 25th of June, I will still be in Sailorsburg, coming back, wrapping up. There will be no class. The following week, on the 2nd of July, is the first day of the 4-day weekend. There will be no class. So there will be 3 classes that will be missing. The first class we will hold will be the 9th of July, after the 4-day Independence Day holiday. So 6 classes now, then 3 classes again, no classes, and then back again on the 9th. When we do that, I may start a new text. And I think that pretty soon I will find that all 3 classes, the one in Brahma Sutra, one Kaivalya Upanishad, and the Vedantic Insights one, we will really begin a new chapter of how we should have classes. I've thought about some things. So anyway, Kaivalya will be gone, and I would say this. We started a introduction to Vedanta about 3 years ago, and with the finishing of the Kaivalya Upanishad, that introductory period will be over. And how we go forward, I'm not sure of, but I think I'm happy that we did an introduction to Vedanta through some very basic texts and then finally graduated with an Upanishad. And so that segment is now over. And then after that, we have to think about how many classes I will teach. I don't know whether they should be advanced classes or not advanced classes. All of that I think have to be done. But anyway, this is the plan that I wanted to show you. But I will also write to you about it, and so that you have a written record of which classes are there. Okay, so with that, let me close the class with a prayer and to see if you have any questions. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Will be the 9th of July after the 4-day. Okay. Yes, it's the Alan Turing of imitation game. Yes, that's the one. Good, Anshari. I'm happy you enjoyed the additional analysis of verse number 14. Good to see you all in the class. Many of you attending 2 classes, that's a lot. And look forward to seeing you hopefully next week. Okay, Hari Om.